In this video, we'll be revealing why you should consider retiring at 55, even if you originally planned for 62, and how this earlier timeline could actually provide better life outcomes than waiting for the, quote unquote, safe early retirement age. Look, through working with clients that discovered waiting until 62 or later was costing them some of their healthiest, in some cases, most energetic years, and then analyzing the hidden costs of delaying retirement, we've identified why the conventional wisdom about retirement timing can potentially prove to be, frankly, unproductive. And that's exactly why we're making this video today, to challenge the assumption that 62 or even later is the smart early retirement age or the smart retirement age, and to show you why your best years, I think, shouldn't be spent waiting for an arbitrary timeline. So let's get right into it. So let's kick off with the big one, the 62 early retirement assumption. Somewhere along the way, 62 kind of became the default early retirement age. Why? Well, because frankly, that's when you can start drawing Social Security. But that's not necessarily because it's optimal for your life, your lifestyle, your goals, etc. And in my view, here's the problem with that. It ignores your individual health, your energy levels, your family situation, frankly, your goals, and all the things that matter more than some government eligibility date, right? We shouldn't plan our lives based around what the government tells us to do. So a lot of people end up working through the best years of their life. And for many folks, 55 to 60 plus, dealing with commutes, deadlines, meetings, stress, all of that so you can retire at the quote unquote, official retirement or conventional retirement age. I think that's cookie cutter and you should avoid it. So here's the question though. What if those are your healthiest, most capable years? Are you trading your best years for a few extra bucks in your 70s or 80s? Maybe you don't even want to travel anymore. Maybe you don't want to leave it all to the kids. It's kind of an interesting idea, right? So let's be real. This timeline was designed when life expectancy was way lower. Now, there's a lot to argue about that, but in many ways, it's sort of an outdated idea. And in my opinion, it prioritizes the balance sheet, not your quality of life and your goals. And a lot of people we talk to realize that they actually need less money than they thought, and they want to spend their time differently, which in my view is the rare, more valuable asset. So the 62 assumption could waste some of your prime years, but the health and energy, reality reveals that early retirement can provide a lot more connection between your wealth and your values, which is really, that's what we're going for. So let's talk about the health and energy reality a little bit more. This is where it really gets interesting to me. Your 50s might be the golden window for retirement. We're talking about travel, adventure, exploring new hobbies. Now, and all of that is more enjoyable and honestly more doable when you've still got the energy, the mobility, the desire to do it, right? So I hope folks that are taking this renewed approach towards staying healthy, and I think that can be great to extend your life, but your energy levels do tend to decline, as you get a little bit older. And so adding 7-8 years more stress, commuting, deadlines, that really adds up. And if we're candid, stress can really wear you down and it can rob you of some of your best years, which is something that we really don't want to happen. Probably you can make more money, but you really can't buy your health back. You can't buy your time back. And for our clients, that's what's a priority. The clock continues to tick. The retirement activities that you want to do, they may not always be, as inexpensive. They may get physically more difficult for you to do as you age. This is something I've heard so many times. And I wish I would have retired earlier. I had the money. I just didn't think that I could. Didn't make a plan. Really what happens is they didn't have a system in place to figure out whether they could manage going to retirement. Health's definitely a big factor, right? If health is a concern, early retirement or even a staggered retirement can really be a good thing for folks. But I want to also talk about sort of the opportunity cost here. This is a challenge. So let's talk about the opportunity cost of this. What's the real cost of waiting? Not just financially, but your lifestyle, your values, doing what you want to do, having time, freedom, and flexibility. Those extra years of stress, grind, they can, let's be honest, lead to some health problems, sometimes expensive ones. But you miss the best moments too, the family milestones. Maybe the grandkids are growing up, trips with your partner while you're both still active and healthy. You can't get that stuff back. There's no refund on lost time. And the longer you wait, the more you're trading your time, which is more valuable, for money, and often money that you don't actually need. I work with folks all the time in this situation. That's why I want to talk about this, is they have regrets. And I don't want you to. They say at their job to feel safe. They kept working or kept running their business to feel safe, but they missed years that they simply can't get back. Now that you get a sense of some of the potential risks of waiting, I want to encourage you, click the link below. We've created a detailed video showing exactly how you can plan your dream retirement regardless of what your current situation looks like. If you could retire sooner, why wait? Let's find out what you can do now. So how do you actually make retiring earlier work? Well, you start with what I call some lifestyle planning first, okay? Instead of asking, how much do I need to retire? I want you to start asking, what does it cost to fund the life that I actually want to live? And even more, what you got to figure out, what kind of life do I actually want to live? It seems so elementary, so foundational, but it really is. A lot of people discover, sometimes to their surprise, that their ideal lifestyle doesn't cost nearly as much as they assume. Now, look, I want you to do this. Do this exercise. We break it down between essentials, discretionary spending, and then look at sometimes even the cost of where they want to move. And then we stress test the plan. We actually do the work. And what we find is that the numbers often say, yeah, we can actually do this. You can do this. You don't really need, in my view, to hit a random savings number. That's been perpetuated for, in my opinion, the wrong reasons. But I think what you need is a plan that fits your life, and that's goals-based, lifestyle-based, planning first, driving towards what you can actually do and what's actually feasible. You've got to ask and answer the question, what does it cost to create enough income to fund the lifestyle that you actually want? You should really do the work, do the math. That's really what retirement planning comes down to. But most folks are focused on building a big number, which is fine. Sometimes it's an ego number, not on figuring out how to pay for the life that they want, right? And some folks have not even thought about the life, what the life they want is. That's where we've got to start. I think it starts with figuring out what's feasible, and then how do we bridge the income gap to figure out how do we fund that if you're retiring before 59 and a half, right? Or a more traditional retirement age when you have access to retirement accounts. So let's talk about the income bridge strategy. This is really straightforward, right? Well, how do we do it? Well, let's talk about the steps. How do we get from maybe in this case, say 55 to 59 and a half or 62 without running out of money or without paying penalties? That's where what we call the bridge account or the bridge strategy comes in. Look, it's a taxable investment account. It's a brokerage account. Good old brokerage account. Way underappreciated, in my opinion. Really no penalties, flexible withdrawals. These things are game changers. It has to be a great part of your funding strategy. And maybe there's some part-time work or consulting that you're going to do. Not necessarily because you have to. Again, this is what I really want to drive back to this lifestyle idea. But that's because you want to. The point of retirement is to have enough income to be able to fund the life that you want to live and to get there as soon as possible. That time freedom is what your wealth buys. And I want to try to break down some of these traditional retirement norms a little bit here that can really help to keep you active, to keep you engaged. In a lot of cases, this can give you some purpose to really make living a longer, more aligned lifestyle. We want to match your wealth with your values. And healthcare is a big challenge, but there are options. There's some options in the marketplace, and with some careful planning based on ACA rules, we can be flexible about this, about these bridge years. If you have a plan, you're working with a professional that understands how to do this, these are not something that you should fear. This maybe could be an exciting thing for you. These could be some of your favorite years in retirement. So look, now that you understand the steps, you're beginning to approach retirement a little bit differently. Let's look at how to implement this strategy regardless of your situation right now. So what's the implementation framework for retiring at maybe 55 or earlier instead of just the default 62, 65, 67? What's the playbook? Well, we've got to start by figuring out what you want in retirement. Not a guess. Let's define some key goals and then figure out what it's going to cost to fund that. Sometimes we call this a budget. That's the B word. I like to call it a spending plan. How do we create the spending plan or the income required to fund the lifestyle that you need? That's number one. Number two, in my view, we need to stress test. We got to figure out, could you do it today? Why wait 10 years if you could do it today? We need to figure out what your options are, or maybe we need to wait a few years, and how do we fund that, okay? But the question is, how soon can we do it, and what's the ideal timeline? If you weren't worried about the details, could we accomplish it? Then we've got to take into consideration all of your assets, your income, and we've got to create a system that really tells us what you can spend safely based on your investments, based on your risk tolerance, your risk capacity, any guaranteed income sources that you have. And then we've got to stress test this to determine, how could this fare if things change? What we figure out is, how do we build your income bridge? Of course, we're going to look at your taxable investments, then your tax-deferred investments, and your tax-free investments. These are your defined retirement accounts, traditional brokerage accounts, your IRA, Roth IRAs, if you have any of those. Any other assets. We're going to bring it all together and map out the withdrawal strategy that's going to help you get to and through those retirement days without penalty. Now we got to map out your healthcare strategy. Now, this can be a comprehensive conversation in itself. And we want to make sure that your plan's flexible, not rigid if we can. And look, your goals are going to change, markets are going to change, what matters to you is going to change, so we want to be able to be flexible. And the next piece is to stress test it. Again, build buffers, build contingency plans, make a real plan. And look, I want to encourage you, get guidance from someone who really gets early retirement, but really understands all the stages of retirement, understands all the complexity here. It's not just about getting to that point. It's how do we do that in a tax-efficient way. Don't just use a generic calculator. Okay, it'll just tell you, hey, you need $2 million, you need to invest, blah, blah, blah. Here's an estimate. What if it's wrong? What if something changes? Do you have a system to keep up with that? We've got to balance your health, your time, your energy, your relationships, figure out what your values are, and how do we play by the rules to match your values with your wealth so that you can spend wisely and enjoy your time. So now that you understand why you could potentially retire at 50, 55, even if you plan for 62, 65, 67, and you understand some of the specific strategies that make this timeline both feasible and maybe preferable, maybe you want to reconsider your retirement timing based on what's actually optimal for your life and your goals, rather than just an arbitrary conventional timeline. If you're ready to get help implementing the strategies that we talked about today that can potentially enable your dream retirement, really, click the link below. We've created a comprehensive video showing you exactly how to build the early retirement you deserve. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next video.